Good afternoon. Welcome back to another edition of Talk of the Towns, where we talk about all things towns. As always, we ask that if you like what you see, a couple things. Make sure you hit like, share, and subscribe. Like, share, and subscribe. You can find us on Apple, you can find us on YouTube, and you can find us on Spotify. And also, we've been loving the comments we've been getting and the great suggestions. So make sure you send those in. Keep sending those in at info@nytowns.org, info@nytowns.org. Send your comments in. Let us know what you want to see. We've had a couple great podcasts here recently. We're getting really good comments and a lot of traction on them. And we have a great podcast for you here today. We have one of the leaders in the New York State Senate, someone who's been a real champion for a lot of the issues that are affecting towns, and we're going to get into those issues. But I want to take this moment to welcome Senator Hinchey to our podcast. Senator, welcome.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here. Good. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thank you. I know we were talking about, I think the last time we saw each other was back in May, and it seems like the summer went so fast.
So fast.
Yeah.
So fast.
Looking forward to getting back to the session.
I am.
In January.
There's a lot to do. We have a lot to do. Yeah. There's always things on the table. There's always things to do. And, one of the best parts of being in the district right now is talking to folks and getting more ideas, right? Figuring out other issues that we want to solve, different creative solutions that we can bring to the table. And so we're always ready to get back into session and get back to work.
Yeah, you have a big district. So Senate 41, right?
Yes.
And we're talking about how many municipalities in your?
56. I've got 4 counties and 56 towns in 2 cities. So that makes the 56.
Yeah. Wow.
And they range in size. Yeah. So covers about just under 2,500 square miles.
Yeah. So we were talking about some of the bigger towns, some of the smaller towns. So you see the issues from both sides of that.
Yes. Yeah. We've got the city of Kingston, which is our largest municipality. I think it's just about 24,000 people, which in the scale of a city, right, is still a very small city. Yep. And so we have those unique challenges that we try to bring to the table. And then we have our smallest town, which is just under 800 people, 774, and everything in between.
Yeah, yeah. We at the association, I was chatting earlier about this, we see that as well. I mean, our membership, 933 towns across the state. And we have we have the biggest town in the nation, Hempstead, all the way to some of the smallest. And so very diverse, and we work very hard on their behalf, and I know we've worked very hard with you in your office on some of the issues which we'll dive into. But before we do, Senator, maybe talk a little bit about yourself, maybe what brought you to the Senate, a little bit about your district, whatever you like to talk about.
Yeah, thank you. This is where I grew up. I'm born and raised in Saugerties, and I love this area. I think it's a really special part of the world. It's a really beautiful area. We have so many different options of things to do, right? We've got arts and culture, we've got sports, we've got outdoor recreation, we've got great food, tourism, it's a travel destination. But we face a lot of challenges too, and especially for our small municipalities that just often don't have the resources that they need to be able to do all the things that they need to and want to do for their residents. And, growing up here, I saw how special it was, but also a lot of the challenges that we faced. And also growing up in and around, immersed in government. My dad was in public service for the majority of my life, and really my whole life. And I saw firsthand what that means, right? So I heard everything when we would spend time together, whether it was going to the local Hudson Valley Mall or being on the trail with him, because that's how we spent time together. I'd hear everything from people saying, thank you so much. You helped my mom be able to keep her veteran benefits, or please help me, I'm about to lose my home, right? And that really shapes the world. That really shapes the way that you see the world, at least for me. And I saw that, and also the negative sides of government, right? Especially when you're in elected office or in public service, it can take a lot of time. You're never going to make everybody happy, and there's a lot of work to do.
Going to the grocery store sometimes is a contact sport almost.
It's a town hall in and of itself, right? So, as a kid, you see that, and you kind of weigh choices, but at the end of the day, after I graduated college and went into the private sector, I worked for technology companies and media companies, and I just felt like there was a lot more to do and to give back and to be involved. And when I thought about where and how I would do that, it was the community that raised me and
that's
wanting to,
great.
where I want to raise my own family, right? And be able to uplift and support the people who live here and who are trying to get by. And decided to run for the Senate and really uplift the issues that we're facing. I mean, I ran in 2020, started my campaign in 2019.
Wow.
And we're talking about, before the pandemic, the need for infrastructure, broadband service, water infrastructure, more housing. About every 10 years, there's a big influx of folks who move to the Hudson Valley.
Yep.
We were saying in time for the next one, we have to get some of this infrastructure in place so that we can actually do it right and build it out correctly and help get the money and do all the things. And then the pandemic hit. Yeah. And so that happened a little bit faster than, I had anticipated. I think many had anticipated, but it just shined a light even more on how much we have to do in this area and the opportunities that we have to make life better for people.
Yeah. You bring up a lot of issues, and we're going to delve into all of them. One of the things that struck me on the way down here, driving down, is really how rich in history this area is. We chatted a little bit about it. You have Hyde Park as a town, which is, a lot of history there. You have some other towns around here. Kingston, the first capital, obviously. Some others are close, not maybe in your district. But one of the issues that we are going to bring forward to our members is a 250th celebration at our annual meeting in February. And we're asking our towns to share their histories with us. And I'm struck with really how much history you must have in this area.
It's incredible. And every time I'm driving around our, almost 2,500 square mile district, I see so many of those blue placards, right? The blue and gold placards that highlight some incredible piece of history that happened right there. And I'm still trying to figure out how we can digitize that, because you're driving down the road 30 miles an hour, 55 miles an hour, and you can clock that something happened here, but you may not be able to see it or even remember exactly where you are on the road to get back to it. And so that's something I think is really important, because we have so much history here. How do we make it more accessible for people to see and get involved with and appreciate what has happened here? I mean, this whole Hudson, obviously the state is an important one as it pertains to the founding of our country, but the Hudson Valley, especially between Kingston, the first capital, the creation of the first Senate was here, right at the Senate House, just a few, less than a mile from where we are right now. The Assembly first met here in a tavern. Talk about one of those placards. There's a placard that talks about the Assembly meeting in the tavern. The tavern since burned down, but there's an acknowledgement of it. So much of state history and our whole history, but our state history is right here. And it's really exciting to try to uplift that for folks and to just be serving in a community that is so steeped in it.
It's interesting that so many first town meetings were in taverns. And it seems like something about the politicians and the taverns. I don't
Never goes away.
I don't know.
That never goes away. I will say one thing, the oldest Four Corners in the country is in Kingston. The original 4 stone buildings still exist. Right in the city of Kingston, just again down the road.
Cool.
And on one of the corners, people have heard about Rough Draft. It's a bookstore, coffee shop. They've got some beers. That's actually one of the original buildings. And so that corner, whenever you get there, anyone who's listening, that's the oldest Four Corners in the country.
Oh, wow. That's really neat.
Yeah.
So I hope some of this has inspired some of you folks to get out and start writing your history for us. Send it in to us at info@nytowns.org, and we will feature your history in our magazine and at the annual meeting, and really talk about how I think the history of the nation, history of the state, is really built on the local governments. It's from the bottom up. And
Absolutely.
It's so much history that's happened in the state of New York, but it's happened in the towns and the municipalities, and so we want to celebrate that.
Absolutely. I mean, it's one of the things that makes our country so unique too, right? These layers of government that we have, and the local layers of government. It's really, it's fascinating. It's one of the kind of core components of our country, and it's right to celebrate it.
And towns don't exist, villages don't exist in a big portion of the country. Once you get outside the Northeast corridor and maybe a little bit into the Midwest, I think Illinois may be the furthest, these smaller units of government don't exist. And I think that's a disservice to those folks. Because you really have the closest to the people is in the local government.
Absolutely.
But we will continue that conversation, I think, as we get into some of these big issues. But I did want to point out that you have a pretty nice chair seat with the agriculture, right, committee.
I do.
Yeah.
We have renamed it the Ag and Food Committee, Agriculture and Food Committee, to colloquially renamed to better connect the dots for folks on what it is that we're talking about when we're talking about agriculture.
Yes.
Right? Especially if you don't live in a rural community, if you don't live in an agricultural society, you may not connect the dots that when you say agriculture, it means the food on your plate or even the clothes that you're wearing, the drink in your glass, right? It can feel kind of removed. And it was important for us when we took over the committee, when I took over the committee in 2021, to really bring it home for folks, especially those who don't live in communities like ours, to recognize that this is something that's important for everyone across our state and to support our ag communities and our ag businesses and our farms. It's important for everyone.
Yeah, no doubt. I agree. And I think I didn't have a chance to look into a lot of what goes through there because I was more focused on some of the things that you've done to help municipalities.
Yeah.
But I know how important that committee is, and I know the work that you do on that committee is so important. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, we've done, a lot of work, I think, in trying to expand markets specifically for our farmers and our farm businesses, help keep our tax dollars more local, also in a circular economy. If the state is buying more food from New York farmers, that's money that goes back into our communities. It goes to the local restaurants, it goes to property taxes, it goes to whatever it might be, to the workers. And that actually helps us keep a lot more money locally. Right. And that's been kind of the priority for us thus far through the committee, and making sure that people everywhere across the state have access to good, locally sourced, fresh, healthy food.
So, one of the issues that you really have been a leader on in the entire legislature, not just the Senate, is the swap issue, because our towns have talked about the need for dedicated funding for something that they can count on every year and invest in water and sewer infrastructure systems. Can you talk a little bit about your work on that and how you think it's going to go we're hoping this session is where we can push it through. Yes.
Well, first, thank you. And thank you for all of your partnership too. And to everyone, all of the leaders at the town level, it's really a team effort. And when you're changing funding streams, especially big ticket funding streams, it's a lot of work and it can be really difficult, but it's really important to do. And when you recognize that there's a need, you have to fight for it. Right. And our clean water grants are wonderful. They're really important. They serve a very important purpose. And a lot of our communities have been able to access them, and that's great. But they're for more of the larger projects. Yes. And also, smaller towns and communities don't have equal access to them in just the way that they've been functioning. It's just true. Right. It can be really difficult, the grant process, the paperwork. If you have turnover, people don't have full-time grant writers on their staffs. It's expensive to hire one. Once you're in the system, then it gets a little bit easier. But to get over that hurdle, it takes a lot of work. Yeah. And then the scoring criteria doesn't always fall on the side of smaller municipalities and towns. And you also can't plan then. You can't plan your infrastructure projects if you're waiting on a possible grant that you may or may not get, and you don't know when you would get it if you do. Right. And so the grants are really important, but they don't solve the whole problem. And so working in partnership with you and many others, the SWAP program is something that would actually allow our towns to plan. Yep. Really, I think almost for the first time in a really earnest way, to be able to actually build out infrastructure or repair infrastructure. We have water infrastructure that's over 200 years old. We have water infrastructure that's built with wood. Yeah. And most people listening to this podcast know that because they deal with that all the time. But the majority of folks, the majority of New Yorkers don't realize that. And so it's expensive. Yes. It's expensive to replace that. Yep. And it's cheaper, though, to replace it before it breaks. Yep. And often when it breaks, it's too late. Yep. And you can't then qualify for some of the grants because you have to expend the money immediately to solve that problem. Yep. So if we could get towns funding to do the upgrades that they need for their water and sewer infrastructure, not only will it save money in the long run and pretty much immediately, but it will also help municipalities and towns plan what they want to do. Right. They can plan if they're paving a road. They can plan the water infrastructure replacements at the same time.
Yes.
So they're not then digging up the road that the beautiful road that we just paved with CHIPS money, like 2 years later, because we just got a grant or we were able to just get the money to be able to do it. Or you want to run broadband or fiber, we can do all those things at the same time, which is just smarter.
Right.
And so this is a program that we've been fighting for a while, and it's taken a lot of education because, again, if you don't live in, a smaller town or a community like ours, you just don't think about it.
Right.
It's not your fault. It's just not what's on your table. It's not what's on your plate.
Right.
So it's taken a lot of education to kind of get folks to understand how beneficial this would be.
Yeah.
And also that it's not a knock on the grants program as it exists. It's an added thing to help communities. And in the Senate, we've been able to get a lot of traction.
Yeah.
We need to make sure the Assembly kind of comes along with us, but every year we've made big strides.
That's good because we've been working on the Assembly ourselves, and you hit it right on that. I mean, I can't say it better than you already said it, but it's not a competitive program to the grants, and that's what people have to start, I think, to realize. It is a feeder system into grants. It gives a municipality a chance to maybe put the resources that you talked about in order to find grants, but it certainly helps municipalities, as you say, do that deferred maintenance that is it's a ticking time bomb under the ground. And we did a study, we talked to our members, and the highway superintendents responded to it, that if we were able to plan the water main replacements, it's like a $5,000 to $7,000 project. But if it bursts, not only the inconvenience to the residents who don't have water for that, but if it bursts, it's actually somewhere between $50,000 and $100,000. So as you say, save a tremendous amount of money by making these investments early. So
it's a massive amount of money.
Yeah, and I think continue with the grants. That's wonderful. I know there's budget constraints coming up. I know that the out year budgets. I talked to the comptroller the other day about this, and but we have to find a way to carve out some. One of the criticisms we got is we're asking for too little money, and you don't want to ask for too much money either. So I think we're asking for the right amount of money. Our members tell us that with $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 annually, they can do so much with replacing water mains, updating the distribution system. I had one rural town tell me that they could buy their chemicals that they need to run their system because those chemical costs are going up and up and up.
Right. Well, and especially communities, right, that as we talked about are 700 people.
Yeah.
Every dollar makes a really big difference
Yes.
because if you have to raise taxes on 700 people, that's a lot to cover the water costs, right? Or sewer
Correct.
costs.
Yep.
That's a massive hit to a small number of folks.
Yeah.
And I think that's a discrepancy that some people don't recognize, especially if you don't represent smaller towns. You don't realize what we consider a small amount of money is actually a lot of money.
A lot of money, right. Absolutely.
It's actually a lot of money.
Yeah.
When we're dealing in billions of dollars in budgets, it can be hard to kind of pull back and remember what we're talking about, like how far a dollar goes.
Right.
And we have to realize that any amount of money that we can put towards water and wastewater infrastructure is going to go leaps and bounds further today. And so we have a lot of work to do. I think I'm hopeful that we can get there. And I think especially with the budget constraints that we have coming up, we have to find places where we can invest that makes money go further.
Yes.
And this is one of those places, which is kind of what I was just trying to allude to. This is one of those places. If you invest some money up front, we're going to save a lot more money on the back end. Right. And so even though it feels like it might be a new budget line, it's actually going to save us dollars. And that's the smart way to legislate. It's the smart way to plan when we're dealing with fiscal constraints.
I love it. I could see why you're such a leader on this. So thank you. Thank you. The other area with water that we've kind of come into some new issues with is the PFA or PFOA, or people have different ways of identifying it, or the forever chemicals, however you want to talk about it. You've been a leader on that as well, and helping municipalities deal with that because that is falling squarely on the municipality's back. Can you talk a little bit about your work in that area?
Yeah, water, as we're talking about, is a finite resource, but we're water rich in the Northeast, and that is a benefit to us, right? When we're looking across the country and you've got massive droughts in the Midwest and California that they don't even know if they can get water to their farms anymore, right? We're not dealing with that crisis, which sets us up really well for the future, right? So we have to plan accordingly. We also have to protect our water and make sure that it stays clean and pristine. We have some of the best water in the world, especially here in the Hudson Valley. One of the most important things that we do here, one of the big resources that we have is New York City's drinking water is right here. Because it's some of the best in the world. And so we have to protect that water and our water supply and all of the streams and such that go into these larger bodies of water. And PFAS, emerging contaminants, forever chemicals, are found now almost everywhere. And especially in our landfills, seeping into the groundwater. And so we actually have a bill to remediate emerging contaminants, which within the existing $500 million clean water grants, we would like to carve out about $20 million to help municipalities clean up those water sources and get it at the source before it trickles out even further, and then we can't contain it. We have to contain it at the site and at the source so that we can protect water all around our area and across the state. So we pushed for it this year. We were able to get it in our one house, but it was the first year that we were really pushing for it. Assemblymember Kellis carries it in the Assembly, who is also a big champion on these topics. And I'm hopeful that we made some good strides in the topic this year. And again, the education of letting people know, to your point, falls squarely on towns to have to handle this.
Absolutely.
So it's going to be a big priority for us next year too.
Great. Well, we appreciate that as well, because we've been talking about it. I was a supervisor, as you know, for 15 years in a town. And as I was exiting for this role, that was an emerging issue for our water plant. And the cost involved in the remediation is enormous. And everyone, residents will come out and say, hey, the municipality didn't cause this problem, but it falls on us to pay for it. We did win a class action suit. We got into a class action suit against the, the BFAs or whatever, not the BFAs, whatever, the people that put it in their products that ended up in our landfill. So that has helped. But outside of that, a lot of municipalities don't have the resources. So thank you for that.
Absolutely.
The other thing you're doing...
One thing I'll add is, we do have to hold to your leadership, right? And that was really early in this conversation, but we do have to hold those companies accountable, right? I mean, they're poisoning our communities, they're poisoning our products, and they've been able to get away with it for decades without a lot of oversight. And we have to hold them accountable. At the same time, we have to give our municipalities the resources they need to also deal with the problem, because we're not going to be able in the immediate to track down all of those companies to do what they should do. It's kind of nearly impossible. And so we have to hold folks accountable, but we also have to solve the problem now before it gets worse.
Absolutely. And I'm glad we're partnering on that, and we'll be there in the legislative session to help.
Wonderful.
So let us know what you need. The other thing you're doing to protect communities, which I think was really great, and we worked with you, and now Senator Fahey, who was an assembly member when we worked on this with her, but is the short-term rental bill. I sometimes get a lot of questions about this bill was passed, but then it was amended later. And so maybe talk about that process so people are clear on what's going on, but also what it does to protect communities.
Yeah, the legislative process can be a black box. And it sounds, you get something passed and you think you're done, and then the thing that actually rolls out, it can be very different, which I have a lot of comments on the process, but the process is the process today. So basically what happens, in order to pass a bill and to get it up to the governor, you have to have the same bill passed through both the Senate and the Assembly. Different from the federal government, where you can actually have two different versions and then you reconcile it and you pass another version. In the state, you have to have the exact same bill to the letter pass the Senate and the Assembly. Once it passes both houses, then it's ready for signature. Goes to the governor. The governor can call up the bill. She has until the end of the year of which it was passed to request the bill to come to her desk. And once she requests it up, that starts the clock on 10 days to sign it. And in that period of time, that's when negotiations start. We think we've passed the best bill. We've done a lot of amendments to it. That's the letter, the original number, and then you get an A print, then you get a B print, sometimes you get a C print. Those are all amendments. Then you go to the final amendment time, which is with the governor. So her policy experts and such engage with the different offices and different stakeholders in the community. And come back with a proposal. Sometimes they sign it as is. Many times they come back with something called chapters, which are the amendments. And in relation to the short-term rental bill, the governor's office had a lot of chapters. They had a lot of thoughts. We thought that the statewide registry was the best way to go, have it housed within Department of State and be able to actually see the holistic data so that we could understand how many short-term rentals we had across the state. We have a limited housing stock. We have not built more housing in earnest in the Hudson Valley since IBM was here. IBM left in the 90s. And so we have to be building more housing, but at the same time, we're losing the existing housing stock we have to short-term rentals. And we don't know what that looks like. Each individual town may know, because some of them have their own registries, but not all of them do. And a lot of them have been asking the state for help to do that and to get the data and to help monitor it and figure out what we can do. So we wanted a statewide view so we could see how much of our existing housing stock was being pulled off the market to also help inform how much housing we need to build, right? But the governor's office thought it should be more of a county by county, including some consolidated, counties working together, but more county by county level with information feeding up to the state. And we've been collectively fighting for something on this issue for a really long time because it's one of the biggest issues that our communities were facing, at least here in the Hudson Valley and what we were hearing kind of all across the state. And we went through negotiations, and in order to get the bill into action, we had to compromise with the governor and move to the county level registry and then feed that information to the state. But still, local control. We're not saying how many short-term rentals any community should have. We're not doing caps. We don't get into garbage pickup or parking spots or any of that. Just wanting to make sure that the folks who are actually renting out homes, of which most of them, it used to be the person who lived there, went on vacation once or twice a year, rented it for the week, and got a little extra income and then came home. Now it's basically small hotels, right? It's like almost hotel chains. People own multiple homes that they've taken off the market, and they don't even live here. They don't even live in the state. And so we just need to understand what those short-term rentals are, how many there are, to also help our first responders, right? Our first responders are getting called to a fire or to some type of incident happening. They may not know what they're walking into. So if we have a registry of short-term rentals, our first responders will also know these may be people who are out of town. They may not know what to do if the house catches on fire, right? They've never used a fireplace before. It's like a real thing. And so they at least are aware of like what they should be looking for, what they're walking into. So, it runs the gamut. I could talk forever on the need for short-term rental registries.
I agree with you. And I think this, moving away from, it used to be, I think it started with maybe, as you indicated, a homeowner maybe renting a week or two or whatever. But these housing trusts have come together. These big corporations have come together. They're starting to buy them up. And I want to give the governor a lot of credit for her leadership on this as well. I believe she put in her budget proposal that and I think it passed, that a trust, a corporation, whatever, can't bid on a house the first 60 or 90 days. And I think that was great.
Huge.
Great, leadership.
Absolutely. I agree. I think we're seeing a lot of big corporations and private equity primarily buying housing. They're also buying farmland, right? We have private equity companies that are looking for finite resources that are only going to increase in value and importance over time and taking them off the market away from New York residents, local folks. And again, most of these private equity companies, the principals don't even live here. And so, and it's not keeping money back locally into our communities. And so we have to just get a handle and an understanding of what the landscape looks like and give our municipalities the tools they need and the tools they want to be able to do what's best for their residents.
No, that's great. I appreciate your leadership on that as well. You've done so much to help local governments and municipalities and have really been a leader in that area. One last area I did want to bring up and talk a little bit about, because it sounds maybe not important, but it was important, the speed limit. Giving the municipality, the towns, the ability to set a lower speed limit. These neighborhoods, these speeds at 30 miles an hour, and towns had no control to change that. I want to thank you for that and maybe talk a little bit. What inspired you on that and how did that get done?
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, you're right. A lot of folks don't think about Safe Streets or the Safe Streets Coalition outside of really New York City.
Yeah.
And they've done a tremendous job in the city of elevating the importance for safe streets, more speed cameras, and trying to hold folks accountable. One of the things that we have in more upstate, right, is like roads default to 55 miles an hour.
Right.
And especially through a village, if you can't change that, that's a high speed. 45 miles an hour is a high speed. And it's been really difficult for towns to be able to control their own roadways, right? Or the roadways that go through their municipalities. And we've seen a massive uptick, tragically, in roadway deaths and pedestrian deaths. I mean, here in Ulster County and New Paltz, and in Saugerties both, we had some tragic accidents in just the last year or two. And when you're at a local government level, you want to do something immediately to be able to protect the next person, right? And to make sure that doesn't happen again. But if you're stuck and you can't actually lower your own speed limit when you know it's too high for that area, especially around a college campus, somewhere where there's no lights, rural roads, what can you do?
Right.
And so we want to give the tools back to the folks who know these areas the best and who can actually do something to help and keep people safe. So it's, under the radar, no pun intended, actually, maybe pun intended, I should say that. But it's been kind of under the radar for a while, but it's something not under the radar for folks who are living this every day, right? But at the state level, and we want to give them the tools, our town supervisors and our county legislators, we want to give them the tools to be able to do it.
When I was a town supervisor, we used to get inside the neighborhood, so you could think of these little like neighborhood tracks or whatever, and we'd always get calls that people were speeding through the neighborhood, right? So we would set up the tests and all this, the strips, and test the speed, and it always came back that they really weren't speeding, but 30 miles an hour through a neighborhood is fast.
Yeah.
And then the next frustration always was, well, you need to lower it. Well, we can't lower it. And they said, well, what do you mean? It's a town road. Why can't you lower it? And so it really is, I think, is going to help a lot of communities across the state.
Yeah. And the process now, the speed study takes a really long time. There could be one death alone should lower the speed limit, right? If you can prove that it's because, or because, or there's multiple deaths, which unfortunately in many places there are, that it's because people should be driving slower, that should be enough to be able to lower the speed limit. And we know everyone's going to drive a little above what the speed limit is. And so it's just kind of human nature, right? But if the speed limit's 40 or 45, people are going 50, 55. Right? If the speed limit's 30 or 35, maybe then they'll go 40, right? Which is a little bit better. Or if it's 30 and we lower to 25, right? Like we have to try.
Yes.
And we have to give our towns the resources and the ability to do what is best to keep residents safe.
Yeah. This has been very engaging, and I really appreciate all your time. I know we hit on only a few of the issues. You have a lot of issues that you're dealing with. Anything you want to add or talk about that we haven't touched on?
Thank you. No, I just want to say thank you for all of your help and leadership in so many of these areas. Really, when we're looking at legislation, we always reach out to you all as leaders and for your expertise and feedback on what we're doing, because we always want to make sure that the legislation we're putting forward is actually going to help people. It's one of the things that drove us for our first responders and firefighters, for the work for our volunteer fire departments, right? Most of my departments across our district, we have 134 fire departments. Wow. All of them are volunteer but one.
Wow.
And so, again, if you don't live in a community that has volunteer fire departments, you don't realize what that means.
Yeah.
Right? You don't realize that people are on call, but are also working their full-time job, that they may have to leave or ask to leave. That the equipment that our firehouses are operating with, decades old. And so the two biggest requests for funding that our office gets is help with water infrastructure and volunteer fire equipment and support. And so, creating the V-Fire grant, the capital grant, was a huge win that everybody, worked on together to make sure that there was some bucket of money at the state year over year that departments could apply for to actually get updated air packs or a new firehouse and the things that they need. But we have to make sure that we're supporting our first responders across all of our communities, because they're really what keeps us safe.
Yeah. And I think there's a real recruitment issue coming. It's hard to find folks who can do that now.
Yeah.
They just don't have the time they used to have, or as you say, they're at work, and sometimes now, maybe that's a farther commute than what they've had in the past.
Yep.
But I know in my community, recruitment for volunteer firefighting and other things is a real crisis. And we didn't even get a chance to get into the EMS crisis, but that's a really brewing crisis for local governments, and that's something maybe we'll have to come back.
I'd say part two.
Part two, that'll be our second one. But you guys have all done, I really appreciate the Senate, the Assembly, Governor, all the work you did on the EMS stuff, because that was critically important. And exempting that from the property tax cap, huge benefit for local governments. And we didn't even get into the property tax cap, so that's a whole nother.
Yep, we have a lot in our part two. Yeah, part three.
No, I think this has been great. I really appreciate your time, and I look forward to working with you when you get back up there in January. And anything you need from the association, we'll be there to help.
Thank you so much, and this is great. And thanks for your time and for doing this too. I mean, this is such a wonderful way to bring information to your members and to people across the state. I think it's a really great thing, and I'm happy to join you and be a part of it.
Thank you, Senator. And as always, you can find us on YouTube, as I mentioned, Apple, and Spotify. Make sure you please share, like, and subscribe. Share, like, and subscribe. That's important. And send us your comments, info@nytowns.org. Next week we'll be back with, or 2 weeks we'll be back with another podcast. So make sure you check your platforms then.